We are.
Now we are. All right. Good evening. Tonight is the March 7th, 2023 Town of McCandless Planning Commission meeting. One note, it's on, we've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again just as a general reminder, and that is if folks are planning to make public comments, we would ask that they be judicious in their time. We would like to keep it to about 5 minutes worth of presentation. So keep that in mind when you do, if you do, and when you do make a presentation. The first item on the agenda is the Walnut Court Lot 101 subdivision application. It says there will be a presentation. Is there?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have the applicant online, but I can just pull up the plan. I don't know if we've had one of these townhome chop ups since our newer members came on. Do you all remember doing one of these before? Okay.
No.
So just for some background, these are extremely basic subdivision plans. Although they are more than 4 lots, we've had several of these for this one particular development. The townhome blocks are already built. They were all built on, as one lot, basically. But as they have been built, the developer has come back and basically, used the as-built and the footprint to confirm, okay, we're not subdividing something in the middle of somebody's living room, basically, so just making sure that the footprints are right on before they make the final subdivision so that they can sell them individually. And thank goodness we have something to put on the meeting feed with this plan now. So here it is at the bottom here, you can see. I think this is the 4th of 5 of these that we've had. So we've already done 3 of them. This is for lot 101, which is the one at the very front of this development. Walnut Court, I should have mentioned, is right by the on-ramp to 19 off of Engelmont Road. Depending on what direction you came from, you probably drove by the building shells. So everything is compliant for the town engineer's letter. This is pretty much just formality to chop these guys up.
Yeah. Just for information, do they still have one other whole building to build? I can't.
Yes, I think there's one more.
Okay. From one angle, it looks like it's complete, but I couldn't tell. So we will open it for an opportunity for public comment if there is any public comment. Anybody interested in speaking on this? I don't hear anybody from the commission have an opinion or a comment. As RJ says, this is very straightforward and we've done it before. So I will need a motion to recommend that the town council, that we approve, the planning commission approve the Walnut Court Lot 101 subdivision as submitted by Walnut Court LLC.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second by, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Right.
Straightforward.
Oh, easy.
The second item on the agenda, zoning and saldo modernization project. For anybody who's been listening or attending meetings, they have an understanding of what we're talking about. And that's a rewrite of our zoning and saldo ordinances, provisions. And so time for public comment on these. Anybody want to speak and provide public comment? Online?
Got quite a few people logged in. I'm not sure if anyone is tuned in to provide comment. I don't have anybody signed up in the chat.
I would like to say something.
Okay, I'm seeing from Zoom, Mary Bates, if you could give me your address, please.
This is Mary Bates, 811 Cumberland Road.
Okay, thanks, Mary. And I think if we're ready to start the public comment, I'll time 5 minutes.
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, I wish that you would put into the zoning drawings the green space and the floodplain information. That's it.
Hey, don't think I need to do the whole 5-minute timer for that one. Just for everyone's information, the floodplain ordinance is a separate ordinance from zoning. And the SALDO, which is subdivision and land development, that's already regulated through our stormwater code, and those maps are set by FEMA. So that is not something that is the purview of this ordinance. We do have a pretty extensive public recreation and open space provision for new developments in the SALDO side, though.
I think it's fair to say that the green space has been identified.
Oh, you mean like the.
Well, I think it sounded like Mary might be concerned that our green space was not being identified and therefore protected.
Oh, I see what you're.
And
Yeah,
everything that I've seen
It's a district.
is that it's a special district that is identified and will be protected under the new zoning.
it's all public owned lands in that district, so essentially nothing can occur. You know, on those parcels unless it's something that the town is actually undertaking ourselves. Yeah. Otherwise, green space.
The floodplain. The floodplain will be protected and will be shown on drawings.
You broke up at the last second there, but I'm guessing you're asking about protection of the floodplain in the zoning ordinance, and again, that's not, it's regulated by a different ordinance. It's already in the books in the town, basically. So anybody that is developing in the town has to follow those floodplain development regulations. And where the floodplain limits are is set by FEMA, which is a federal agency. So that is not something that is under local purview.
But just to be clear,
RJ, would you like me to provide a little bit of extra input on that? This is Anna Jewer with the town attorneys as well.
Sure.
Sure. So Ms. Bates, as RJ very eloquently pointed out, what the review tonight of the ordinances is focused on two specific ordinances, which are authorized under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So they're looking at planning and zoning and land development in the town. The regulations as articulated for floodplains are required to be separately handled. They can be incorporated into this ordinance, or more typically, they are included in a separate distinct ordinance, which is authorized under both the Pennsylvania Floodplains Act, as well as federal regulations and state regulations, which were promulgated in order to comply with a variety of different requirements. Those floodplain maps you'll see are going to be incorporated and updated in accordance with FEMA standards, and they are done through a separate ordinance. So your concerns are valid, but they are just handled through a separate set of regulations and are not necessarily included in what is being considered tonight.
But I think one of the points that might help Ms. Bates to understand is if a development site has floodplain area identified on it, it is evaluated in the planning process.
Yes, that's correct.
development can occur, but it has to
Within
meet the other
floodplain, not the
requirements.
floodway,
Right.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any other public comments? For anyone signed up online? Was there anyone else that wanted to speak? Right, not seeing anything online. I guess
Okay.
if there's
How
anyone.
about on the commission? Anybody have comments, Al?
No.
Going down the line? No? Brennan? Jonathan?
So it was already previously expressed. So
Okay. Same for me. Anything else?
No.
It doesn't sound like there are any comments to what's already been proposed. How about in the room? No? Okay, so we need a motion to recommend the ordinance prepared in concert with the Michael Baker International Design Hub. I'm not going to read all of that. Be voted on. So all in, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposition. Jonathan? Motion passes with one opposition.
All right.
The note here, I think we ought to make this public and for my benefit as well as anybody else's. So this is now going before town council on May 22nd. Is that still look like it's likely?
Yes.
Okay. Drafts of the code will be posted for public comment at the email address or the internet address and available for review at town hall. How is it available for review at town hall?
We're
In
just
what
gonna
format?
Print the whole thing out in a stack, basically.
Okay,
The zoning map, because it's in a GIS app right now, rather than like you turn that into a PDF, and that's how we print out the big maps that, we normally see. We're not at that stage yet until it's, final. So probably if somebody has questions about the zoning map, I'm just gonna pull my laptop out and walk them through, what we have for the draft. But once there are just a couple tweaks, to, changing the Allegheny County's references from planning commission to their economic development department, because the county does not have a planning commission. Those are in a couple different places in the Saldo. So once I have that copy back from the consultants that has those revisions in it, we'll post the whole thing online. We're looking at, for the McCandless and Me website, adding, how there are those like the map activities and surveys and things that we had. We're looking at adding basically a comment section where if people want to post their comments publicly in a place where other people can see them, they can do that. Also, they can email me, send in written comments. I mean, pretty much any manner that people can translate language to us, we're taking them for the next couple months. And then, of course, the formal hearing will be May 22nd at town council.
okay. I know in total, we're talking about, is it 350, 400
It's
pages?
about 300.
Okay, 300 pages.
Yeah.
I would make an unofficial recommendation that somehow we figure out how we might be able to print these. So that I would love one on the commission. My personal printer, if I tried to print something at 300 or 400 pages, it would blow up.
Yeah.
And I'd be willing to pay for it,
Okay, that helps, because
Uh,
that's, so this is it takes about, I think it's 25 cents per page that we run through the copy.
I didn't say I'd be willing to pay 25 cents.
That's what I mean, because that's like how we set the rates and mill fees and whatever, not that this is the same issue, but point being. Part of the reason that we deliver these lengthy documents in paper is because it cost me about $70 to print one of these. So we can have a couple file
Really?
copies at town hall.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I know.
That kind of
RJ,
blows
I
my mind.
disagree. I'm sorry. I disagree with this. This is a planning commission. This is the commission that needs to deal with this going forward on a meeting by meeting basis.
Mhm.
And I think that it would be very helpful for this commission, or for those of us who might want one, to be given that.
Oh,
because
do you
I
want
think it-
like a final copy or
Yeah.
the one?
Yes,
Yes, that's totally fine.
that's what I'm asking for.
That's what I thought I was asking.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you meant like the draft. Because that's
No.
why we haven't been delivering draft in paper, just because the cost of
Yeah,
printing.
No, I'm talking about for our use.
Yeah,
Going
once it's
forward.
done, it'd be nice if it was bound in some fashion and I would think that others might want it, developers might want it. And I think it wouldn't be unreasonable if there was a small charge to charge a developer or someone who wanted to make use of it and have access to it in order to offset the cost. But
There has been in the past.
Okay.
I think it's set in our fee schedule, so we're actually gonna be making an update to that pretty soon anyway. That's probably something that we could pop in, but usually copies and things like that are charged to the public at cost, which is 25 cents per page. So,
okay.
yeah.
All right, but anyway, I like you, Shelley. I just think that, I mean, I've got a version of the old one, which I have referred to, I can't tell you how many times.
I misunderstood. the
No,
question.
that's fine. I was talking about when if council chooses to approve it and it
It would be helpful.
is
yeah.
what's the law that we're dealing with.
We'll get you a binder.
Okay,
Dan, can I make one other just kind of comment on a tail end? As I voted in favor of this, recommending to council. And I do truly believe, this is a huge improvement over what we're dealing with today. I think that it will be extremely helpful to both staff and to the public and to this commission and council in terms of improving what we have been dealing with, which I personally, as a former developer, have had to deal with, I support it. I fully support it. But I would also say that it is, as you said, 300-page document. It is not perfect. It is never going to be perfect. And I don't think I had no expectation that this first go round that would make huge strides to advance the effort, which I think it has done. But I still think that there are things that any member of this commission or council might say, it's not really exactly how we want it to be. And I personally, because of what our charter said, would urge this commission to, if, like Jonathan, you have concerns, and that's legitimate, totally legitimate. But I think that it's up to us there's still an opportunity for this commission to put forward to council any tweaks, any modifications, any omissions, kinds of things. And I don't think this, historically, I have not seen that this commission has done, and I'm not speaking about anybody on this commission now, I'm talking about historically, has really taken on that role. So if we want to be more proactive, then I think that personally, I think that approving this new modification is appropriate, but I also think that we should be thinking about talking about maybe putting on our agendas and bringing up those things that we might feel are not fully covered, as I said, omissions or additions or modifications, because we have every right to bring those concerns to council for their consideration.
Yes, and for the benefit of the video, I am nodding along,
Yeah.
because this should be a living document. We don't want to be here in 50 years again, wondering why we haven't done this again in the meantime. Part of this is reorienting the structure of the code. So when people bring forward ideas or want to tweak something or, add something new, that it can absorb things without breaking itself. So I would imagine that anything that people want to dig into much more specifically, that would be a welcome discussion in the coming months and years.
Well, actually, RJ, you and I had spoken about actually formally setting a couple of workshops.
Yeah,
Where this commission could talk about the things that they had concerns
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So that is something that hopefully we can get
Yeah.
on the agenda in the coming months.
I'm in full agreement with that, and thank you for bringing it up, Shelley. And we talk about tweaks and things that were omitted or need to be added. But if I'm not mistaken, those tweaks still take the full administrative process of public comment, months of advertising. So it's not as if we can do anything
We can recommend though
quickly, but all
for
right.
council to consider if we think there's something really missing or wrong.
Right.
I mean, no
Okay.
matter what it was, what it would be, it has to go through the legal vetting, this and that and whatnot. And I think particularly for things that people feel really strongly about and really want to drill down into, an amendment format, like I fully anticipate there's going to be some sort of cleanup. There are going to be typos that we're going to want to fix at some point, although Carolyn's quite good at catching those in general. But point being, there are some issues that I'm sure people would like to think about in a lot more depth. And that is what those individual amendment opportunities do the best, at. So I for sure welcome that.
Well, it should be a package of amendments in.
It can be, I mean.
So that it isn't.
Right.
we're not-
You don't want to go through the process for every sentence
Exactly.
change. Right. All right.
We should
No, I
pick
agree.
the items that are of key interest and,
Okay. I think all good comments. Any others? All right, doesn't sound like it. So the next item on the agenda, the approval of the February 7 last meeting minutes. Yeah.
I came in late. We already talked about the saldo modernization.
Yes, but if you have a comment,
Oh, I do.
There's, well, okay, why don't we, since we have a section. for
It'll be a general
public comment,
comments.
Let's do the minutes vote and stick to
Okay.
the,
You know, have we already voted to approve?
well, to. recommend
Yes,
this-
yes, we recommended the approval.
Me too.
We started at 7, that's why.
So you already been through the whole walnut piece?
Yeah, that's very fast.
It's a
But there's-
subdivision of the-
But to your point, there is a general public comment in
I know, I specifically.
which will, then you can bring up your comment. All right. So item number 3, the approval of the February 7th, 2023 minutes. Any comment based on the minutes? Additions, edits or additions, subtractions? Hearing none. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A
So,
motion to adjourn? I thought I was speaking.
no, ma'am.
We're
Your
coming up.
time will come in a minute. Just hang on, please. And so do we have a motion to approve? One, second, second from Shelley. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it moves. The minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is general public comment. So now, ma'am, you may make a general public comment that you would like to make.
So I'm still a little bit confused here.
Could we just get your name and address for the record, please?
Excuse me, I will do that. It says that there was a presentation about Walnut Court. Was there? A
There was.
presentation?
Yes,
Okay,
It's an existing townhome. It was just being subdivided into units. Took about 5 minutes.
okay. My name is Ellen Wright, WRIGHT, 9635 Old Coomer Road, Allison Park, 15101. And just out of curiosity, you're Daniel Corham?
I am. Yes,
Okay, and Jonathan Hall? And Shelley, I recommend you from the environmental, and Clark,
The other woman.
you know, you're right, I'm a little flustered. Brandon O'Donnell. Sean Klein. Jacobs, I know Jason's not here.
He's behind you.
and just so you're up,
Jason, there we go.
just so you're aware, ma'am, that there's a 5-minute limit on a presentation.
Excellent. So I wanted to first thank everybody for all the time they spent on the zoning work. And for all the questions you asked. I'm concerned that your questions weren't always answered. Specifically in the January meeting, there are 3 pages of discussion about questions that weren't being answered. I'm concerned that part of the issue was that the project was considered to be over the budget. This is such a big project that if there wasn't enough money, then why not ask for more money? I'm not sure if it was 65,000 or 96,000. This is the zoning for the whole town. And if you needed more time, then to take more time. I'm concerned that a quarter of the way into the 21st century, that the most modern tools and approaches are not being used to create these zoning maps. Specifically, in the 21st century, why isn't Geographic Information System, more commonly known as GIS, being used to create these maps? Specifically, in the 21st century, why aren't the FEMA flood maps included in this new map? Note, Marshall Township includes the FEMA flood zones in their zoning map. Specifically, in the 21st century, why not include the watersheds? Lowry, Gertie, Little Pine Creek, and North Park. I'm concerned that unlike the comprehensive plan task force, where there were dates and meeting points, the zoning task force had there's no meeting dates listed, there are no minutes. I'm concerned that the agenda for tonight is incomplete. The agenda states that after the vote, the draft will be available. The agenda states that the public hearing will be in May. The agenda does not include all the time limits that are included in this project timeline. As an example, when will the plan be sent to the county for review? I would give other examples of missing items from the timeline, but since they are missing, I do not know what they are. and concerned that the planning I don't know exactly how to say this, but the meetings that were done with the consultants, and I just took another look at the minutes, that there were groups of people that met with the consultants, that there are no minutes for those meetings. There are no dates for those meetings. And I would have encouraged a no vote for on the agenda, on the motion. And I would have requested a motion for additional time and dollars so that this work was done correctly, meeting 21st century concerns. And so that instead of being in a position of, well, we have to get this done, we don't have enough money, that the planning commission had the money and the time to create a zoning map for the 21st century.
Thank you.
Well, obligated to state for the record that I don't know how to build a map without GIS, so it was obviously it's on GIS. I can stop including the courtesy notes on the agenda that aren't pertinent to the voting motions if people feel that they are more confusing than helpful.
Anything about not having a FEMA flood zone on the map?
I think you missed it, but our lawyer on the call probably can chime in again as to why that is
Sure.
not zoning maps, regulatory purview in the McCandless.
Absolutely. Everybody, apologies for not being there in person, and the Jewett again from the town attorney's office. So, you know, you may consider the issues of floodplain and zoning and land development as being pretty intertwined, and it's true, they are considerations that any developer is going to take into place. However, when we're looking at building out a zoning ordinance and subdivision and land development ordinance, as opposed to a floodplain ordinance, we're dealing with two separate powers, two separate authorities that are provided by statute. So zoning obviously is going to take into account the use of the land, subdivision and land development also going to take into account the use of the land. They're all authorized by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. So that is where we are looking at here. Then you're going to have the floodplain ordinance. That is something, the maps are established by FEMA, approved and promulgated through PEMA, the Pennsylvania arm of FEMA essentially. And those ordinances are approved and reviewed separately through an entirely different statute and through an entirely different process. So those are maps that are going to be often overlaid and considered by developers at the same time, but they should not really be considered together because we do not have the authority to promulgate a FEMA map. It is, you know, essentially two related items, but from a legal standpoint, they have to be considered separately. You might see them combined in certain ordinances. That's not necessarily typical, and it's definitely not required. So we're happy to answer any other questions, but that's sort of why you're not going to see the floodplain overlays necessarily on a zoning or subdivision map.
Okay, I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?
It's right on the screen there, ma'am, but Anna Jewett. I'm with the town attorney's office.
And so what law firm is that?
Excuse me? What law firm?
What?
That's Callan, Clements, and Zomnier.
Thank you. So this was from The Guardian. I couldn't say it better myself, so I'll just read for it. The other reason for all this climate change chaos is the US has spent much of the past century building millions of homes in the most vulnerable places, pushing into fire-prone mountain ranges and right up to the banks of rivers that were destined to flood. The developers and local officials who were responsible for all this construction were sometimes ignorant of the dangers, but other times they steamrolled ahead, even while knowing the potential for ruin. So, for example, the new map, I attended the open house. The new map on Glacier Drive, I can't remember what the new zoning title is, but it includes the possibility of a 4-story building in a flood zone. Perhaps if the map, such as Marshall Township, perhaps they have a different attorney, different law firm, that they include on their zoning map would give people pause, because as a taxpayer, I'd rather have it done correctly up front than paying for problems later on. And so, yes, so that's my concern, that as a taxpayer and a resident, that things, if they're done properly up front. And I could see that throughout this process, the planning commission had many questions. They had quite a few questions. You had quite a few questions, and I appreciate all the questions that you had. I have another question. Oh, is that my time limit?
Is
Oh,
for the
what
viewers
was
at
yours?
home that may be wondering, you do not need to include the FEMA maps on your zoning map to still regulate the floodplain.
Right.
As stated in your ordinances.
We don't ignore the floodplain when development is being proposed. It is just not on the zoning map. It is an overlay and actually, I believe that for the Saldo, it requires floodplain limits and elevations to be included with plants.
Yeah, because but also
So-
our floodplain ordinance.
See, to just to clarify some of what I said, just very, very briefly, regardless of what you include in your saldo or zoning, the floodplain regulations which exist, those that are promulgated both federally from the state level and any additional regulations that you intend to use to supersede those will apply. They just cannot be, they are a separately authorized issue. And so they are not addressed through this particular ordinance, but they are addressed and will apply regardless of the actions you take on this ordinance tonight or the map.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. I'm not sure how to say your name, Mr.
Fordham.
Fordham. Thank you.
Any other comments from in the room? No? And I guess that concludes all the public comments. We're ready for adjournment, a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Jonathan, motion to adjourn, second,
Second.
second from Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.